She was the kind of girl who didn't speak much, not because she had nothing to say, but because the world inside her was louder than the one outside. While most children laughed loudly in playgrounds, she found herself drawn to quiet spaces where she could hear the gentle rhythm of her own thoughts. She wasn't lonely, she was simply different. Her heart moved to a softer sound, a sound only she could hear. The first time she touched a piano, she was only 7. It was an old, dusty instrument in her aunt's house, keys yellowing with age. She pressed one key, just one, and the sound felt like magic. Not loud, not grand, but warm. It echoed through her small chest like a secret, like something waiting to be discovered. In that moment, she didn't know she wanted to be a pianist. She only knew she wanted to hear that sound again. Days passed, and she found excuses to visit that piano. Her fingers stumbled, sometimes hitting the wrong notes, but she didn't care. Every mistake was a step. Every note was a tiny spark. She didn't have a teacher at first, only curiosity and the desire to learn. She watched videos secretly at night, copying slow hand movements, pausing and rewinding over and over until her eyes grew heavy. No one knew her bedroom light often stayed on long after the house slept. She didn't dream of fame or applause then. She dreamed of melody, of music flowing like water under her fingertips. She imagined herself sitting in a quiet room, playing something beautiful enough to make someone stop and listen. Even at a young age, she believed music could speak for her in ways words never could. As she grew older, the dream grew with her. School life was loud, too loud. While others shouted during breaks, she slipped into empty classrooms where an old keyboard waited, wires loose, sound imperfect, but still enough. She played softly, hoping no one would hear. Not because she was ashamed, but because her music felt personal, like something fragile, something she wasn't ready to share with the world. She wasn't the top student in class. She wasn't the funniest. She wasn't the kind who drew attention. But inside her, a fire burned, steady, invisible, but alive. She carried her dream quietly, like a small flame cupped between her hands, protecting it from wind. Sometimes she wondered why music mattered to her so deeply. She didn't know. Maybe it was the way the notes blended like emotions. Maybe it was the calm she felt while playing, the way the world slowed down, the way worries disappeared like rain turning into vapor. Piano wasn't just sound, it was escape, expression, breath. Life around her didn't notice. Friends chatted about movies, phones, and fashion. She listened, nodded, smiled, but inside she was thinking of chords, harmonies, finger exercises she wanted to try later. While others played outside in the afternoon sun, she hurried home to her keyboard, eager to practice the new phrase she learned last night. She wasn't fast. She wasn't perfect. Sometimes she hit wrong notes and felt frustrated. Sometimes her fingers hurt. Sometimes she wondered if she was crazy for loving something that tired her so much. But each time doubt crept in, she sat down again and the music reminded her why she stayed. One evening, her mother found her practicing in the dim light. The room was quiet except for piano keys and her slow breathing. Her mother stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching, confused but curious. She didn't know why her daughter spent hours on something with no guarantee. No prize, no future written clearly. The girl looked up shyly as if caught doing something forbidden. "I just like it," she whispered. Her mother nodded, not understanding fully but sensing something pure behind those words. And so the girl continued quietly, privately, passionately. Years passed. Her dream did not fade, it didn't break. It grew slowly, steadily, like a seed pushing upward through soil, unnoticed until one day it blooms. She didn't know if the world would ever hear her play. She didn't know if she would succeed or fail. She only knew she wanted to keep trying, because to her, piano was just a hobby. It was a heartbeat, a language, a place where she felt more herself than anywhere else. She didn't shout her dreams, she didn't argue with the world. She simply practiced. She waited, she believed quietly, because some dreams don't need noise. They just need time. Her quiet dream grew, but the world around her did not grow with her. As she practiced more, people began to notice, not with admiration but with disbelief. At first it was small comments said carelessly over dinner. "Playing piano again?" Someone asked with a smile that didn't feel warm. "It's just a hobby, don't waste too much time." She laughed softly, pretending it didn't bother her, but the words stayed like dust on her heart. Soon relatives joined in. During family gatherings, while cousins talked about careers in medicine and engineering, she sat silently, fingers hidden under the table, wishing she could talk about music without being laughed at. One uncle chuckled one evening and said, "Piano won't feed you, dear, you'll understand when you're older." Everyone laughed lightly, everyone except her. She smiled politely, but inside something cracked. Not because his words were cruel, but because they believed them. Even her parents, though loving, did not understand. Her mother suggested she focus more on studies. Her father said she should learn something useful. They didn't mean to hurt her, they were scared for her future. But their fear became her doubt. Was she wrong to dream? Was music impossible? Still, she practiced late at night when the house was quiet, when no one could watch or question her. She played slowly, letting her heart guide her hands. Sometimes she cried softly while practicing, wiping tears quickly so they didn't fall on the keys. But even through tears, her fingers kept moving. Because even if the world doubted her, the piano never did. It accepted her every time, broken or brave. At school, things were not kinder. When classmates asked what she wanted to be someday, she answered honestly, even if her voice was small. "I want to be a pianist." For a moment there was silence, then someone giggled. "A pianist, seriously? That's not a real job. You'll end up teaching kids nursery rhymes." She stayed quiet, staring at her shoes. They thought she was naive. They thought her dream was silly, too soft, too fragile. But they didn't know that sometimes the quietest dreams grow the strongest. One afternoon during break, she sat in the music room alone, playing softly. A group of girls passed by and whispered near the door, "She plays every day. What does she think she'll become? She should study something real." They didn't said it loudly, but they said it loud enough. She felt her chest tighten. Her fingers paused, her heart hurt not like a wound but like a bruise that keeps darkening. And yet, she continued to play, not to prove anything, not to impress them, but because stopping felt like stopping her breath. Music became her refuge. When the world felt cold, piano was warm. When people doubted her, the piano believed her. But growing a dream in a place full of doubt is not easy. Some nights she lay awake questioning herself. Would she fail? Was it foolish to continue? Was the world right? She wondered if she should quit just to make life quieter, easier, acceptable. But every time she sat at the piano the next morning, her hands naturally found the keys, like her body remembered even when her mind doubted. The melody was her answer. It told her not to give up, not yet. One day she overheard her parents talking softly. They didn't know she was listening. She should focus on academics now. Yes, piano is fine, but she needs a real future. She's growing, dreams end, life doesn't. Their voices were not harsh, but they broke her gently. She went to her room, closed the door, and sat beside her keyboard quietly. She didn't cry this time. She simply placed her hands on the keys and played slowly, deeply, with a softness that carried pain like a story. Her music that night was sad, but it was also strong. Because something inside her was changing quietly, like seeds under soil. She did not shout back, she did not argue, she simply made a silent promise to herself, one day they will hear me, not just sound, but strength. Even if they mocked her dream, even if they called it just a hobby, she knew her heart wasn't wrong. She was not ready to quit, she was ready to become. Days turned into months, and while the world doubted her, she grew quietly. She still practiced alone, keyboard humming softly in her small room, her back slightly bent, her eyes focused, her fingers stubborn. She did not have the best instrument, but she had patience, and sometimes patience builds miracles. Every small improvement felt like a victory only she could see, a smoother scale, a faster trill. A song she couldn't play a week ago now flowing easily under her fingertips. She smiled to herself when she succeeded because no one else was clapping. She became her own teacher, her own supporter, her own music. Some evenings she sat by the window, headphones on, listening to great pianists playing pieces that felt impossible. She watched their fingers dance like wings. At first it made her feel small, but then it made her feel hungry. If they could do it, why not she? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day. She practiced with determination that no one saw. Her fingers reddened from repetition. Her shoulders ached from long hours, but her heart grew stronger. When schoolwork piled up, she worked harder instead of quitting music. She learned to balance study during the day, practice at night. Her father once walked past her door and saw her asleep on the piano stool, cheek resting near the keys like she belonged to them. He shook his head sadly, thinking she was wasting herself. But she was building herself quietly, like sunrise builds into day. One afternoon, she found an old music book in a thrift shop. The pages were torn, yellow, handwritten notes filling the margins. The shopkeeper said it once belonged to a pianist who traveled the world. She held it with careful hands, feeling like she was touching history. She bought it with her saved coins, the best treasure she ever owned. Night after night, she studied that book like scripture, hard pieces, fast runs, emotional passages. She felt as if the unknown pianist was teaching her through those worn pages, pushing her, challenging her, believing in her even if he never knew her. Slowly, her music changed. Where it once sounded hesitant, it began to sound alive. Where it once trembled, it now spoke. Where it once was practice, it now felt like art. She didn't realize she was becoming good, truly good, until one day a teacher passed by the music room and paused. He listened through the door silently, eyebrows raised. When she finished, he entered gently. "How long have you been playing?" She hesitated. "A few years on my own." He looked shocked, self-taught. "That piece is not easy. You played with feeling, not just skill." What? His praise was small, but to her it felt like sunlight after months of winter. She walked home with lighter steps, heart glowing like a secret flame. It was the first time someone outside her home acknowledged her talent, even if just for a moment. From that day forward, she played with more courage. She tried harder pieces, longer pieces, pieces that made her fingers tangle and her mind ache. Some nights she failed again and again, but she didn't stop. Failure became part of the music, not the end of it. She no longer feared the keyboard. She challenged it, and it challenged her back. Her dream wasn't loud, but it was growing taller, stronger, impossible to ignore. Still, she told no one. She wanted the world to hear her only when she was ready. And deep inside, she knew a day would come, a day when she would sit at a piano not hidden in a quiet room, but in front of people. A day when the ones who called her dream just a hobby would watch with eyes wide, hearts open, disbelief burning into respect. She didn't need applause yet. She was preparing for it. She didn't need to prove anything yet. She was sharpening the proof. She didn't speak about her dream. She was building it, brick by brick, note by note, night by night. Her talent was no longer silent. It was rising like a tide no one could stop. And soon, very soon, the world that laughed would listen. She had grown quietly, but the world had not changed. People still saw her dream as small, unrealistic, childish. The more she improved, the more she wished to prove herself, not for applause, but for dignity. So one day she decided something brave. She signed up for a small local piano competition. It wasn't grand. No cameras, no newspapers, no famous judges. Just a community hall with plastic chairs, a polished piano, and a gathering of young musicians hoping to shine. Some came with private teachers and expensive instruments. She came with heart, nothing else. When she entered the venue, she felt many eyes turned toward her. A few recognized her from school. Someone whispered, "Oh, she's here too. She thinks she'll win." Another replied with a smirk, "She only plays at home. What is she doing here?" Their voices weren't loud, but loud enough to sting. Her hands trembled as she filled her registration form. She tried to stay confident, yet the old doubts returned like shadows. What if they're right? What if I'm not enough? But then she remembered her long nights, her calloused fingers, her tears over difficult passages. She remembered the feeling of music flowing through her like breath, like heartbeat. She belonged on that stage, whether they believed it or not. She sat in a corner, practicing finger exercises quietly while other participants talked loudly, laughing and showing off pieces they memorized. She didn't join them, she didn't need to. When it was her turn, she walked toward the stage with soft steps, heart racing. The hall felt bigger than it actually was. The lights felt brighter. The audience seemed larger than ever. People who mocked her leaned forward, waiting to watch, maybe to witness a mistake. She sat down at the piano and closed her eyes for 3 deep breaths. Then she played. At first, her hands shook slightly. But soon the melody steadied, warm, flowing, emotional. She didn't play to impress. She played to express. Every note carried a memory. Every chord carried a wound healed through persistence. Her music was not loud, but it was deep. And the hall listened. The same classmates who once joked about her dream now sat unusually quiet, eyes following her every movement. Even those who came expecting her to fail were surprised. Her music was not perfect. She missed a note or two, but she continued with grace, like a river that finds its path despite stones. When she reached the final passage, she played with all the feelings she had stored inside for years, the pain, the doubt, the hope. Her hands moved confidently, beautifully. The last note rang like a whisper the room didn't want to lose. Silence, not mocking, not amused, just silence, thoughtful, heavy, respectful, then applause. Not thunder, but warm, real applause. People clapped because they felt something, not because they were expected to. She bowed with a nervous smile, her heart glowing like sunrise, but not everyone was happy. Some parents of other contestants whispered, "She's not trained, it was luck. She'll never go far without classes. She's good, but not good enough." Their words reached her ears like thorns. She walked home that evening proud but hurting. The applause meant something, yet the whispers still echoed inside her. She asked herself again, is talent enough, or do I need proof stronger than applause? And she found her answer. She decided she would enter more competitions, not just one. Not just small ones. She would climb slowly, stepping into arenas bigger than before. If they doubted her, she would grow until doubt felt small. If they mocked her, she would let her music respond louder than words. She promised herself that night she would turn ridicule into rhythm, pain into practice, dream into destination. Because no matter what the world believed, she was not done, she was only beginning. And one day she knew her music would not just be heard, it would be remembered. Competing again became part of her life. She went to community halls, school auditoriums, small cultural events, anywhere there was a piano. She didn't always win. Sometimes she placed second, sometimes third, sometimes nothing at all. But every time she stepped off stage, she stepped off stronger. People still whispered. Some said she was wasting time, some said she was stubborn. Some said she was chasing a dream too big for her hands. But she didn't stop. Because the dream was not on the outside, it lived inside her. One day, after a regional performance, something unexpected happened. While she was packing her music sheets, an older woman approached her. She wasn't just any woman, people recognized her. She was the director of a well-known music foundation, someone who trained young talent for major city concerts. The woman spoke slowly, her eyes warm, curious, impressed. "I've watched you for 2 competitions now," she said. "You have something special, you play with honesty." The girl felt her breath catch. No one had ever said something like that to her, not with sincerity. "I want to invite you," the woman continued, "to perform at our foundation's annual showcase. It's not a contest, it's a stage, a real one. Filled with people who understand music. Filled with people who understand music." Her heart raced. She felt excitement and fear collide like thunder. A real stage, a real audience, a real chance. She accepted with a nod so small it barely moved her head, but the woman smiled like she heard her heart speak instead. Preparations began immediately. She practiced harder than she ever had, not because someone asked her to, but because she wanted to give her best. This performance was different. It was not about winning. It was about showing who she truly was, showing what music meant to her, showing that her dream was not fragile, it was unbreakable. Some nights she practiced until the world outside her window faded into deep silence. Some nights her fingers numbed, but her soul felt alive. Her mother watched quietly sometimes, a soft sadness and pride mixing in her eyes. Her father, seeing her dedication, stopped questioning her dream. They didn't say much, but their silence wasn't doubt anymore, it was respect. The day of the showcase arrived. The hall was bigger than anything she had ever seen, velvet seats, gold lighting, a polished stage that shone like a promise. The piano stood at the center, majestic, ready. As she walked inside, her steps felt small compared to the room, yet each step carried years of practice behind it. Other performers were warming up backstage, skilled, confident, trained. She felt like a quiet shadow among them, but shadows can be powerful. They are calm, they see everything. She stood near the curtains, palms sweating, heart pounding fast. She could hear the murmur of the audience. Some guests wore suits, others evening gowns. They weren't here for entertainment, they were here for music, real music. And today she hoped to give them exactly that. When her name was called, she stepped onto the stage. She didn't look for familiar faces, she looked only at the piano, her friend, her refuge, the place where the world never mocked her. She sat down gently and placed her hands on the keys. In that moment, every memory returned, the ridicule, the doubt, the quiet practice, the tears she wiped quickly, the nights she stayed awake learning, the competitions she didn't win, the whispers that told her she wasn't enough. She absorbed all of it, and then she played not to prove them wrong, but to prove herself right. The melody that flowed from her fingers was unlike anything she had played before, soft at first like a story beginning slowly. Then it grew fuller, braver, carrying emotion as thick as breath. She didn't just play notes, she played years, she played dreams, she played resistance. The hall fell silent, the kind of silence that only music can create. She reached the final movement, sharp, powerful, alive, and her whole body moved with the music. By the final chord, she was trembling, not with fear, but with release. Like she had finally spoken everything she kept inside for years. And when the last note faded, there was no ridicule, no whisper, no doubt. The hall rose to its feet, applause erupting, loud and long, like thunder finally finding the sky. Some clapped with surprise, others with respect, and some with tears glistening. She bowed deeply, and as she stood, she saw it clearly. She had not just performed, she had arrived. And the world that once questioned her dream was starting to believe in it. After the showcase, everything changed, slowly, silently, but powerfully. The applause from that night didn't fade like it usually did. It followed her like a warm shadow. People from the Music Foundation approached her, one after another, offering compliments that felt new, real, earned. "You play with heart. You made us feel something. Not many can do that." Those words were worth more than trophies. The director of the foundation placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "You belong on bigger stages." Bigger stages, the words echoed inside her. A dream she carried quietly for years was now spoken aloud by someone else. Someone who believed. Days passed, then weeks. Suddenly invitations started arriving. Local radio stations wanted to interview her, small concert halls wanted her to perform. Music teachers asked if she would join workshops, train with professionals. Her world, once small like a bedroom with a keyboard, began to open like a door she never thought she'd walk through. But even as opportunities grew, she remained the same, humble, quiet, focused. She still practiced late at night, fingers still sore sometimes, still correcting mistakes, still chasing a tone only she could hear. Greatness didn't make her arrogant, it made her more determined. Meanwhile, something else changed. The same people who once mocked her began speaking differently. When classmates heard about her performance, their voices softened. "She really did it. She's going somewhere. She wasn't just dreaming." Some congratulated her shyly, others pretended they always believed in her. She didn't hold anger. She simply smiled, not with pride but with peace. Because she knew they weren't clapping for her past, they were clapping for her growth. One afternoon, a teacher invited her to perform at a school event. She walked onto the stage where she was once laughed at. The same auditorium, the same hallways, the same students, but now everything felt different. There were no whispers, no mockery, only quiet expectation. She played with the same heart she always had, emotional, warm, honest. And when she finished, the applause was deep, loud, genuine. Some students who mocked her years ago approached her after the event, smiles shy, eyes proud. "You proved us wrong," one admitted. Another said softly, "You inspired me." Her heart softened, not because she wanted revenge, but because she wanted transformation. And she witnessed it, not just in the crowd, but in herself. One performance turned judgment into respect. But another performance, the one she did for herself, turned respect into purpose. Her parents, who once worried her dream wasn't practical, now sat beside her every evening, listening as she practiced. Her mother made tea for her long sessions. Her father sometimes closed his eyes while she played, letting the music wash away years of misunderstanding. One night, after she finished practicing, her father said something she never expected. "You didn't choose a hobby," he murmured. "You chose your life, and it's beautiful." She didn't cry, but her heart did, silently, gratefully. Music had given her more than applause. It healed her relationships, her doubts, her fear. It became bridge, voice, forgiveness. Soon she was invited to perform at a televised youth talent concert, her first time under real lights, real cameras, real pressure. The audience was bigger this time, the stage wider, the expectation heavier. But she stood there calmly, remembering the girl who played alone in a small room with old keys. And she smiled because she was no longer that girl. She began to play. Her music flowed like it always did, not flawless but full of soul. Viewers across the region watched, some for the first time, some for the 100th, but all felt something strong, the feeling of a dream proving itself. The clip of her performance spread online quickly. People shared it with captions like, "Dreams do matter." She was laughed at. Now listen to her. "Never call passion just a hobby." And slowly but surely her life changed, not overnight but beautifully. Because when a dream is watered with faith, tears, and effort, it eventually becomes a garden no one can ignore. She wasn't famous yet, she wasn't done. She was rising, and the world was finally rising with her. Success did not change her personality, it changed the world's eyes toward her. Where people once saw a shy girl, they now saw a musician. Where they once heard noise, they now heard meaning. Where they once said just a hobby, they now said a gift. She continued to perform in events and local concerts, each time with more confidence and maturity. Yet the most beautiful change wasn't in her career, it was in how people treated her. One morning at school, something unexpected happened. A girl who used to tease her walked up slowly, holding a notebook. She didn't have her usual attitude or loud voice. She looked nervous, the same nervousness the pianist once carried inside her own chest. "Can you teach me a little?" she asked quietly. "I want to learn piano too." The pianist looked at her, surprised at first. This was the same girl who once laughed at her dream, the same one who said it would never take her anywhere. And now she was asking for help, not out of pity, but out of admiration. She smiled softly and nodded. "I'll teach you," she said. "Start with your heart, not with your hands." Others came too. Students who once joked stood in line after class with small questions and shy smiles. Some apologized, some didn't, but their presence was apology enough. They were not mocking anymore, they were learning. She taught whoever asked. Not because she wanted power, but because she wanted to share the feeling she once kept alone, the feeling of music breathing through fingers, lifting the soul, healing places even words can't reach. Soon her name began circulating like light. Teachers invited her to guide the junior choir. Parents asked if their children could take lessons from her. A local community center offered her a space to teach weekly. She accepted every opportunity humbly. Each student reminded her of herself, small, unsure, full of quiet potential. One evening, her father stood outside the room while she taught beginner students. He watched without entering, listening to the laughter and mistakes and gentle corrections she offered. When the class ended, he walked in, eyes soft. "You've changed lives already," he said, voice warm. She shook her head with a soft smile. "No," she replied, "music changed them, I only shared it." He did not argue, he only placed his hand on her shoulder. There were still challenges, of course. Pressure grew as her popularity grew, more eyes meant more expectations. Some critics online said she still lacked technical precision. Others claimed her style was too emotional. But she didn't break. She didn't shrink back into silence. She practiced harder, not out of fear, but love. One night, while scrolling through messages, she discovered something that made her heart pause. Her performance video, the one from the televised concert, had reached thousands of views. Comments filled the screen. "I cried listening to her. She plays like she's speaking to the soul. I gave up piano years ago, she made me want to try again." She pressed her palm to her lips, surprised, emotional. Her music was not just reaching rooms, it was reaching hearts. And then an even more unexpected message arrived. A woman wrote, "My daughter has depression. She listened to you play for hours. It helped her smile again. Thank you." She stared at the message for a long minute. That was the moment she realized. This dream wasn't about fame, not about winning, not about proving people wrong. It was about impact, real human impact. Her piano wasn't a hobby, it was medicine, comfort, hope. People who once doubted her now attended her shows. Some came quietly, some came proudly, some came secretly to apologize without words, but they came. One of the most emotional moments happened at her next concert. She looked into the audience and saw her entire class sitting together, cheering, holding small banners with her name written in bright colors. Even the girl who once said she'll never go far. Even the boy who once joked she plays for fun. Even the teacher who once told her to focus on something realistic. They were all there, not to laugh, but to listen. She took a slow breath, placed her hands on the keys, and began to play soft, pure, full of memories. And as she played, she finally understood. All those nights she practiced in silence. All the tears she wiped alone. All the times she felt invisible. They were preparing her for this moment. A moment where the world listened. Not to judge, but to feel. Her music was no longer a dream. It was influence. It was power. It was change. Time moved forward, but her story did not fade. The girl who once practiced alone in a small room now stood on stages with lights bright enough to feel like sunrise. But even with growing recognition, she remained gentle, calm, quiet. The same girl who once closed her door to hide her dream, now opening it for others. Music no longer belonged only to her. It belonged to everyone she reached. Months after her concert, she received an invitation that made her heart beat faster than ever. It was an offer to perform at a National Youth Grand Recital, one of the largest platforms in her region. Performers came from all over the country, trained, experienced, known. And now she would stand among them, no longer the girl who people laughed at, but the girl they wanted to witness. The night of the grand recital arrived like destiny knocking on a door. The hall was enormous, multi-tiered balconies, golden lights, a piano polished like a mirror reflecting dreams. The seats filled slowly, people humming with excitement. Among them were strangers, admirers, teachers, young musicians, and in the third row, her parents. They sat holding hands, nervous but proud. Her father's eyes glistened, her mother held tissues ready though she hadn't cried yet. They once feared music. Now they feared missing even 1 second of it. Backstage, she stood facing the piano from a distance, feeling not pressure but gratitude. She remembered everything, the first old piano key she touched, the whispered laughter she pretended not to hear, the lonely nights and tired fingers, the competitions she lost, the whispers that cut like glass, the applause that healed like rain. She closed her eyes and smiled, knowing every moment, even the painful ones, built the girl standing here now. When her name was announced, she stepped into the light. The hall quieted at once. She sat at the piano with slow grace, breathing deeply, hands floating above the keys like wings. The audience waited, cameras blinked, hearts stilled. For a moment there was silence, the kind that feels like prayer. Then she played. Her music began gentle, like morning light breaking through curtains. It rose slowly, softly, like a memory returning home. The hall leaned forward, even the air felt like it was listening. Then came the emotion, strong, deep, unstoppable. The music climbed like a heart learning to hope again, like dreams no longer whispering but roaring. Each note was a piece of her story. Each chord was a step from doubt to destiny. People wiped their eyes, some leaned back in awe, some held their breath, some held hands with strangers without realizing, because emotion binds even unfamiliar souls. She played with the weight of every struggle and the lightness of every victory. Her music shook the room not with loudness but with truth. It reached ears, but more importantly, it reached hearts. And when she struck the final note, long, bright, trembling like a star in the sky, the hall did not move. Silence, beautiful silence. Then, like thunder finally finding rain, applause exploded. Loud, endless, alive. People rose to their feet. Audience members shouted her name. Some cried, unable to explain why sound could break them open so softly. Her parents stood too, her mother wiping tears that finally fell, her father clapping with the pride of a man who once feared his daughter's dream but now thanked it. She bowed deeply, lovingly, her heart full, her journey complete. But the story did not end there. After the performance, people lined up to meet her, not to mock, not to question, but to thank, to learn. To tell her she touched their lives, to ask how music could change theirs too. One girl held her hand tightly and said, "I wanted to quit piano, but when I heard you play, I felt hope again." An old man whispered, "You healed something in me tonight." A mother said, "My child couldn't speak for months after trauma, but your music made her hum." And that is when the truth finally became clear. Her dream was never small. Their doubt was it was just a hobby. It was transformation, it was impact, it was purpose. She walked out of the hall under moonlight, feeling free not because she proved them wrong, but because she proved herself right. The world no longer asked, "Why piano?" The world now asked, "How did your music change me?" And just like that, she became more than a pianist. She became a voice, a light. A reminder that dreams mocked in silence can one day be applauded in stadiums. Her journey didn't end with applause. It began with it, because when passion meets persistence, when a dream survives laughter, it doesn't just change one life. It changes many. Change one life. It changes many.